Welcome to the scorching arena of valor and the crucible of courage. This is the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Here, in the inferno of life's greatest challenges, heroes are shaped and legends are born. Every episode is a torchlight of wisdom, casting a glow on the paths walked by those who've braved the flames and emerged stronger. In this furnace of fortitude, we'll explore tales of resilience, bravery, and the unyielding human spirit. Each guest brings their own spark of insight, lighting up the darkness and guiding us through the smoke of adversity. With Fireman Rob at the helm, prepared to delve into conversations that smolder with significance and stories that kindle the soul. It's not just a podcast, it's a beacon for all who seek to rise from the ashes and glow with purpose. So stoke the fires of your curiosity and ready your heart for tales of triumph and transformation. The flames are roaring. The stage is ablaze. Welcome to the Forged in the Fires podcast. Let the journey begin.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today's guest is one tough SOB. He's been bull riding for a long time. He is actually in the PBR Hall of Fame, awarded in 2005. There's a story that we'll probably have to talk about, a little yellow jacket, but he's also the head coach of the Austin Gamblers, who are just sweeping through the team PBR. My guest today, Michael Gaffney. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You bet, Robert. Glad to be here. Thank you.
I can only imagine what the listeners are thinking. They're like, oh, wait, this guy's a professional bull rider. Now he's coaching bull riding. Most people have no concept of what it's like to even ride on the back of a bull. Take me back to when you first started this, because that's always, I always ask military guys this, but I want to ask you, what was the inclination to go into bull riding?
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because the key word being military. My dad was a career military officer. I mean, that's what he did.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
And so without boring into a lot of details, my mother, when she married him, she was this huge horse enthusiast. It was,
okay.
He had nothing to do. He grew up on a farm in Iowa. Both of them did, actually.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
He just always dreamed of owning a horse. Jumping ahead, after being married and then him being drafted in the Korean War. He was a baseball player, going to play pro ball. He was throwing the ball really fast and got a deferment and went into officer training school, became a jet fighter pilot, yada, yada. Missed the Korean War and then went into the Air Force and went to Vietnam twice in the F-4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and I know I'm jumping around here a little bit, Robert, but
no, I love
it was on the base. The base is that we were stationed at that my mom finally found, and she finally had gotten her first horse, and had always wanted a horse since she was a little kid, and so along with that, my big brother and I had gotten Shetland ponies.
Oh, wow.
So what I'm getting at is, at 2.5 years old, I had my first Shetland pony, and if anybody knows anything about horses that listens to your podcast, I mean, they're meaner than hell, right? They're not ideal horse.
It's not a dog.
Children, right? Because they just didn't kick you or bite you or that type of thing. Just leave me, and giving a whole new meaning to the small men's syndrome. I mean, this little horse I had, Popcorn, he was awful.
Popcorn? That's what you
Popcorn? Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So to finally answer your question, he became my bucking machine at 4 and 5 years old. I mean, he just soon buck you off as let you ride him. So, and of course that was a challenge for a small kid, right? I mean, that was and big brother being, 9 years older than I was, had entered me in a high school rodeo. They had kind of a expeditionary type event for steer riders at 12 and under. So I joined in at 5 years old, got on my first steer in an actual rodeo,
5.
5 years old with my matching green Sears vest and green chaps, and and my dad apprehensive as all get out, because he really was fearful. He never was a horse guy, obviously, and and even though he was a tough jock and a fighter jock and all this stuff, it was foreign to him.
Wow.
And so anyway, from that day forward, I lasted a jump, bucked me off right away, but I was hooked. I mean, it was something that I thought, I've got to do this, and that was when it all started.
That's crazy. I was not expecting that age.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, it all makes sense. And at that age, you don't really have that ingrained fear of anything. I remember.
You don't.
Yeah. And so once you started kind of getting into it, kind of getting more into the aspect of the higher professional level, what is that mindset? Because I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what it is when you're starting to get strapped in on top of the bull. What is that mindset when you just start doing that? And
I like to kind of put it into the realm of any and in all sports, whether it be, now granted, obviously you step out onto a baseball field or a football field, you're not looking to die every day, right?
It's a little different.
It's a little different. So now if you start talking about these little go-kart drivers when they start at 5-6 years old, you're talking about machinery and speed,
right,
and the law of physics that play a big part in those types of sports.
But still, some of those are predictable. A bull
they are. You're great term, and you're right. You're dealing with a living, breathing, animal. An animal athlete now in the realm of professional bull riding that are trained since the time they hit the ground at birth, that they're going to be great athletic performers in the rodeo arena and the bull riding arena, because that's what they're bred for, and they really are. They're an amazing athlete themselves, but yeah, they're not too concerned about your life. And if you are,
you guys don't have conversations.
if you're you're destined to get on them and you want to get on them, you got to be willing to ultimately pay the final price to do that and to do it for a living, and you got to accept that. And I think that's one of the things that's challenging for us now as coaches.
Yeah,
is that even at the pro level, Robert, we're seeing guys that are. It's one thing to be apprehensive, which, it's all about living and life and everything. But when you're doing this, you've got to be all in, right? You've got to be body in, all
everything
into the battle. Like you're stepping out of the trenches and you're going full force. And that's what this sport is. And when you show, not just apprehension, but overall fear and apprehension. Yeah. And I like to say, I use this term too a lot. When a guy becomes civilized, it's time for him to go home, because
I love that.
It really is. And I use these terms because it really is. It's a no holds barred. There's no timeouts. When you nod your head, you're going to battle, and it's a short battle. I mean, it's 8 to 10 seconds. Qualified ride is 8 seconds, but we always talk about 10 because you want to make it past the 8
to be able
and get off as controlled.
Yeah,
and get off as controlled as you can to preserve not only and get off where you're still healthy, and giving the bullfighters their job and letting them do their job to get you off as safe as possible.
I mean, you think about 8 seconds. Most people are like, oh, I could do that for 8 seconds.
Yeah.
But it's so, like you're saying, like the civilized. I want to go back to that because I think that's such a huge point, is that people don't realize the level of just sheer. Well, they talk about the unyielding determination and unshakable courage.
Yeah.
Talk to me more about that. Is that something that you can manifest in somebody, or is it something that they come into and you just refine it?
They come into it.
Yeah.
with that, and another word that I use is commitment, right? When you and I use that word to my son, even though he's a soccer player, thank God,
You did right.
Yeah. He's very, very calculating and smart, like his mother, who's a physician. So he really is. He's got a good head on his shoulders, not unlike his dad. So I'm really thankful for that. So but I use the word commitment, and I use it strongly because again, like any other sport or job or anything like that, if you're going to be not only just good at it, but when you're going to be great at something, you need to be committed. You need to be all in. Yeah. And when you're facing death, when the gate opens every time, it's all the more that you almost have to find a place and put compartmentalize certain things, fear, the injuries that you're dealing with at the moment, because you're always hurt, right? Yeah. You're always hurt. You're always hurt, whether it be a groin or a shoulder or a wrist or a hand. Like we look at the football players and they're always dealing with injuries.
Right. I mean, they have time. I mean, the PBR is a totally different world. It's a different sport that really takes a toll on your body and your mind. And I have to ask you, like, once that gate opens, right? Is it just constant? Do you even think after that gate opens, or is it just reaction? It's reaction. And I like to say this: if you start thinking, it is so rapid fire fast that and it is reactionary, because it's like truly being in the beginning of a car wreck. You're really but don't get me wrong. Totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're doing your job correctly and mechanically correctly, you can be in the right spot, and it's like a dance. And you hear these terms too, and it really is. There's nothing more gratifying and more satisfying to a guy like me or a Jose Vitor Leme or any of the other guys that go in there fully committed, because that's that moment that you are who you are, and that's who you want to be. And I always wanted to be that guy that wanted to have that moment, even though it's so brief. Yeah, and can be so chaotic. There's nothing like it, and to be able to explain it to your listeners, or even guys that do other sports, that until you experience it, you can't. It's really something.
And I want to go into two parts of your career, like when you were a writer, that really kind of stick out. And every place that I went to research your name and everything, these are two parts that just like everywhere they had them. So the first one I want to go to is when your biggest triumph, 1997, when you were crowned the PBR World Champion. What did it feel like to be able to get to that pinnacle, or was it the journey that was the value to you?
It was both, and when you say journey, that's a great word to use, because of what had happened. Before that, I had a lot of injuries before that, and which you are going to have, and for me to overcome all those, because I'd had really great success years prior to that, but then to have those lulls and those ebbs and flows and those real lows before that, because of the injuries, and because when at that point, even more so in professional bull riding, in rodeo, because we were still rodeoing full time at that particular time in my career. So you're going to 50, 80, 100 rodeos a year. So so you're really battered and bruised, and you're traveling. And back in those days, and without getting too deep in the weeds, it's a drawing contest, right? That was one of the protagonists to get us into that hotel room to form the PBR, and is to have control over the livestock that we were getting on. And so anyway, it was, the journey was fantastic, and what it took, how many bulls I had to ride to find myself in that position at the World Finals in 1997, to put the cherry on top and ride that pin of bulls that I drew throughout those 2 weekends. I had to ride every one of them, because my traveling partner, Adriana Marias, who'd already won the world once and was our first world champion in 1994, was way out in the lead. Unfortunately for him, he was on the sidelines with a broken leg, and really cracked the door open for a few of us back, 3-4 months before the World Finals when he broke his leg in, I think it was August, down in Brazil. Anyway, so it did crack that door. Was it barely open? Yes. Everything had to be perfect, and I had that perfect ending to solidify the championship, and that's why it is one of my greatest moments. And I think, secondly, that not only the journey that you asked me about, that is first, but secondly was for me as an athlete, I think, and as a cowboy, being in the locker room with the guys that I admired, and always looked up to, and a lot of the older guys. These guys were 6-8 years older than I was, right? They were still in the locker room,
right? And
the best of the best, the Jim Sharps, Tuff Edom, Cody Lambert, my contemporary, Ty Murray, who was, I went to college rodeos with. These are the guys that you admired and you wanted to emulate. And I felt like, coming from the background that I mentioned earlier, being a military brat and not the traditional rodeo ranching background, I finally felt like I arrived, right?
Wow, that's crazy. And how long have you been doing it at that point?
So I was a rookie in 90. I bought my professional card. In professional rodeo, you bought what you call a permit, and you earn a certain amount of money on that, and then to be able to then buy your professional card. So my first official year with that professional card was 1990, and I won the Rookie of the Year in the professional rodeo Cowboys. I missed the national finals rodeo that year by just a few $1,000s because I only went to 20-something rodeos. I was still in college, and I was traveling with an older guy who had young kids. And anyway, I just didn't go very much. But the very next year, I went to my first NFR and won the finals, and like I said, had some really great success. So at that time, I'd been in the professional ranks for about 6-7 years.
Okay.
And
What do you think the difference was between? I know you guys probably don't like to say this, but what was the difference between you and some of the other guys that brought you to that point? I know it was the draw of the bulls and what it was, but there's got to be something that you saw that you're like, I got this. I'm going to take this now. Was there something that stuck out? To
be able to elevate my game, you mean, to get to
to elevate your game. What do you think it was? What was that difference maker?
I think it was a level of confidence in my writing. I'd won the Rookie of the Year, so I'd had those micro successes that, in 91 I went to the NFR and rode 9 out of 10 bulls and ended up third in the world race then and still didn't go to a lot of rodeos compared to typical guys because I was still in college and just after college. So I did have those successes prior to that. So they were the building blocks, to finally attain that world championship in 1997. Now, I think to go through the injuries after the 91 season, I started as soon as that next year when we formed the PBR 92, I'd gotten hurt and I got hurt. First time I'd gotten hurt to a point where it was debilitating. It was a bad dislocation of my riding shoulder. And so it was the first time it was more than just bumps and bruises and cuts and some small broken bones. It was debilitating because it was hurting my riding. So what I'm getting at ultimately, Robert, is to go through those successes, but then have the bottom, right? Everything really went south. I lost my traveling partner in 94. So went through that psychologically. I talked about earlier being civilized, and these are the things that will do that to a guy and really question and make you question. And this is the beginning of the PBR, right? In 92. So we just had a name, right? All we wanted to do was create something in the hopes of having a better life, right? Not always on the road. We didn't have $500 and $1,000 entry fees every weekend where the top prize was, $5-6 grand. So the top guys, we were all just trading money, right?
Oh, that's crazy.
So, yeah. And I can go into all sorts of lots of little things that again put us into that hotel room that day to form the PBR. But to ultimately answer your question, it was all these things were the building blocks to finally, and then the things just fell right. Unfortunately for Adriano, like that, he broke his leg. I mean, he was a guy that was so dominant, right? I mean, I traveled with him.
So it seemed like.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't buck him off. I mean, the guy was he was durable, he was tough, he was strong, he was mentally, psychologically just something like, there just aren't guys like that very often.
Right.
But what it did do for me in '96 was, we traveled together and we made it to my second NFR then together. And so these are the cats that are in the locker room or you're traveling with or you're spending time with. Hopefully the guys choose those types of guys to be around to elevate your own game and make you better, right?
That's so true. Yeah, so true. That's so true. And when I look at the what you went through as an athlete, as a pro, it's a no-brainer that you went into coaching to be able to do that for other individuals. How did it translate? Because I have to say that, it's different from like basketball and hockey and football and all that stuff. Coaching of bull riding, like you said, you have to kind of lose that fear and everything like that. How does that translate into coaching somebody? Because like you said, you can't really teach them that. What are you ingraining in them to have them to find that potential that you can see in them?
And I've had that question. It's funny you said that, because I've had that question by several different people that say that to me. They say, what can you offer a guy like Jose Vitor Leme, who's a 2-time world champion? He's one of the best, if not the best we've ever seen ever. Right. I mean, he's everything you could ever want in a cowboy, in an athlete, in an individual, as a person. Yeah. But my answer is pretty simple, and it may sound humdrum, but it's just a guy like him is just I have my ears open, and I really just try to listen to him, and hopefully, whatever comment I make back to him or brief comments from the mechanical side, because he is so mechanically sound and so gifted from an athlete's perspective. But with that said, with him and looking at the other guys, each and every guy, there's going to be mistakes, right?
Yes.
That I can pinpoint, and that I being and doing and going through what I went through. And that's what you're asking me. And what you mentioned was, after all the things that I did go through and experienced, and what to be able to convey to the boys in the locker room, not so much. It's never about like me or I, right? It's just, I think they respect me because, I don't tear them down or, but I think they respect me in a way, even though I was like so many generations ago in the bull riding world, right? Because it goes.
I can imagine it was different.
It was different, and so I don't. There's a certain way over the last couple of years. I hope I've learned to do that a lot, and that's to listen to them in a way, whatever question they're asking me, and trying to mechanically express in clarity what I see, and in a way they know me and they know my riding, they've seen me, and I was and have been known as a technically correct rider, right? Because of posture. But I will say, let me say this: bull riding is one of the most simple things to.
I'm gonna stop you there, Michael.
Yeah. Well, and what I mean by that, and we've been talking about this a lot, myself and the other coaches, because we have a very unique sport, because we don't have the numbers like my son, who goes out and there's 500 kids at a tryout, right? Or there's thousands of kids that are part of this program that he's here in Austin, in this club soccer or football or basketball. Because of it being what it is unique. It's so dangerous,
Right.
and it's not. It's we don't have a lot of depth, Robert, is what I'm getting at, and so we need to help create and bring experience to and have the ability to reach out to the youth of the rodeo world and the kids that are out there that want to experience bull riding, that may find themselves being a professional someday. I mean, Jose Vitor Leme himself was aspiring to be a pro soccer player. That's all he ever wanted to do. Yeah. And here's a kid at 17 years old who decided, just lock, stock, and barrel, hey, I'm going to be a professional bull rider. Now, he had a taste of it. I think his dad dabbled in it a little bit. And, of course, being in Brazil, he was somewhat of a country kid. But soccer was his main goal. I'm getting off topic here a little bit, but back to my hope, and I think the other coach's hope is to really give the experiences that we had as being professionals mechanically and psychologically. It's going to be up to them to be and to have that commitment, and at times to remind them that they're not out of the ordinary because they are in a slump and they've bucked off 8 or 9 in a row. Right. And so to reassure them and to remind them and to bring up a video maybe that was 2 months ago or a year ago at how great they really are, and that they wouldn't be at this level if they weren't good and great at what they do. That's
such a huge asset to have somebody like you, because it's always one of those things where sometimes you have coaches who haven't in essence ridden the bull, and been bucked off and had those slumps and had those injuries. It's so powerful. I can imagine for the team, whoever comes in, whether they're the top or the bottom, to be able to look at you and go, well, what he's saying is actually true because he's been there.
Yes.
Have you seen that more from once you got into coaching of like, okay, well, whatever's coming out of his mouth is actually gold because he's been there and done that. And I should be able to utilize that how I need to.
I think so. And it makes me feel good to watch one of them, one of our team members, one of our gamblers have that success. And you would hope that they took whatever point or tidbit or comment you made to them, seriously into heart, to where it did benefit them, whether it be that ride or I've talked to a lot about this with Ross Coleman. Ross is the coach of the Missouri Thunder. Okay. And I met Ross when he was 9 years old in Oregon at a rodeo, professional rodeo. He wanted to pull my bull rope. He jumped up on the chutes. First time I met and he was a little tiny kid. Anyway, I've always had a great relationship with Ross, obviously. And we were talking about we talked often about how it's not just always about bull riding. It encompasses about life and being there for these young men, right? And hopefully conveying to them, like you said, life experiences, not just in the arena, but outside the arena. And that's been great for me as well, right? To be able to convey certain messages, because I'm I've been old and washed up for a long time, and so I've been married for 35 years and had kids, and so to have conversations that are not but men building, right? And reminding them that, hey, take a hold of this moment, because it's a flash, and you're going to look back and be like, where did it all go? And don't think you haven't. And I say this a lot to them. Enjoy this battle tonight, because really, in reality, this could be your last battle tonight. What if you get hurt bad enough, and it happens? Crazy. Yeah, you're done. So go out, guns a-blazing, and take a hold of this. And I, myself and the other coaches, we tell our guys, them that a lot.
Yeah, that's a huge reminder.
Yeah.
Now I want to go back to one of your guns a-blazing. Well, actually 3 times. When you went on Little Yellow Jacket, which is kind of a humorous name to me, because there's nothing little about Yellow Jacket. I mean, I looked up the picture. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. You might as well just ride a bus.
I know.
This is one of the legendary bulls, and you were one of the people that, twice in 2004, you had a 93.75 and a 96.5 ride. Talk to me more about those moments. Do you remember like the feeling before and after, like before going on to this legendary bull, and then after you've, scored over 90? What did that feel like?
Yeah. I think of the word euphoric, right? I mean, I really do. Yeah. I mean, there's euphoria. I mean, it's truly, there's nothing like it. And I'll tell you this more in depth, that the weekend before Nampa, Idaho, where I ridden him the first time, I got on him the weekend before that in Colorado Springs on that tour. Really? And all I remember was thinking, after it was over, everybody said, well, how was it? Well, it was over so fast, but I could tell you what the underside of his belly looked like, because I was underneath him.
Oh my gosh.
And I can tell you what his belly looked like, the color of his belly.
Oh my gosh.
And it happened so fast. And the year prior to that, to go further into it, the year prior to that, in 2003, Chris Shivers got on him right there in Colorado Springs on NBC Live, a challenge of $1 million. And,
really?
And he slapped him. First jump out, slapped him for $1 million bounty. Yeah. Wow. So, and Chris Shivers, two-time world champion out of Louisiana, one of the best we've ever seen. Also, 5'4", 135 pounds, like Jose, just an amazing cowboy athlete, and has still I think the highest number of 90+ rides in the business.
Really? Wow.
So, and what I'm getting to with saying those types of things, Robert, was these are the guys that you looked up to, right? Even though he was my junior by a handful of years, these are the guys, these are the cats in the locker room that you wanted to emulate, and you wanted to be like, because you knew if you could duplicate what they were doing, you were going to be successful. And that's what I aspired to be. I aspired to be like my big brother, 9 years older, and all his contemporaries that were tough, and and my dad, who was a tough guy. That's who I wanted to be, and who better to not try to be like and really try to copycat than guys in the locker room that rode bulls with you, and Chris was one of them. And so back to the Little Yellow Jacket, he was, at that time, I think he'd won it twice.
Yep.
He'd won the two-time Buck and Bull of the Year, and I knew the mistake I'd made in Colorado Springs when I drew him there in the short go round in Nampa, Idaho, on the very next weekend. And it's what I mentioned a minute ago too about being a coach.
Yeah.
That as I look back, and we've had these conversations, myself and the other coaches of the other teams, if we had somebody in our ear flicking you in the ear and saying, hey, wake up, do this, or quit making this so difficult.
Right.
And I mentioned that too a minute ago, Robert, about it's very simplistic, right? Mechanically, there's certain things you have to do on the back of a bull. And if you stay within that realm, right, then your success rate is going to be so much greater, because it really is simple. Now, keeping it there and making the adjustments and psychologically putting that fear and compartmentalizing the fear factor and stuff, that's really the difficult part, right?
Yeah.
And how you feel physically, because a lot of times you're obviously getting on hurt. But when I nodded my head on him in Nampa, it was about keeping that posture really strong, because he was infamous for kind of doing what we call a slump jump right out of there. Yeah, and what was happening is he was jerking everybody down.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why a lot of times you see guys breaking their teeth and stuff on the back of a bull's on a bull's head, because once you lose your feet, you lose your posture, then your feet come up. And then you're bowed down to them, and you're cracking faces, their head in your face, right? So that one correction really set me up for, once he got past that, he was just really good, and he'd go into a spin and just be really good to ride. So anyway, he was really, really a great bucking bull, obviously, to be that many time world champion.
He was referred to as the Michael Jordan of professional bull riding. And I want to give people an idea of how much he weighed. 1,750 pounds. I mean, that's insane, Michael.
It is. And we talk about, and I loved playing football when I was a kid. I loved hitting people. And that's what I just did. I was a physical kid and stuff. And we hear stuff, whether it be like I was watching Monday Night Football and over the weekend, Thanksgiving weekend stuff, about guys getting hit by somebody who's 300 pounds. And I kind of shake my head still to this day. I think, yeah. And I know, it doesn't feel great, mind you, and guys get knocked out and everything else. But when you start talking about, apples to oranges here, right? Because you're talking about something that weighs 1,750 and they're running fast or they're jerking you down, you talk about getting hit. It's a whole different, and that's why I talk about, the sport is really, truly brutal. And that's why I'm so glad my son doesn't do it, because, it is something and that's why you're never going to have the numbers, right, that we have in other sports, the sheer numbers of competitors, because for people to deal with those forces, and rightfully so, right, you've got to be able to learn to deal with that psychologically. And then not only that, when you do get hurt, because you are going to get hurt and you're going to get hurt bad, and to come back from that and to deal with that and to be successful is the true test.
I love it. Well, hey, it has been such an honor to have you on, Michael. I can't thank you enough for coming on and also doing what you're doing. I mean, it's you not only through your actions, but also now through coaching, you're teaching that next generation of cowboy and men to figure out how to do things that are so much more complicated than just a living. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. It's always great to talk about the sport that I love and to have this second life, myself and these other coaches. They're all obviously great traveling partners of mine and great men. For us to have this kind of this next breath in life, to be coaches and to be able to convey whatever hopefully we can convey to these young guys, and to further our sport, like you're saying, Robert, is a true opportunity for all of us. And to give back to the sport, but our franchise owners, the Durbins and JJ, who JJ Gotch, he just spearheading our organization. It's just it's a true gift for us, and I'm so privileged and honored to be able to do this. So I appreciate you having me on. Yeah,
I love it. Well, you're not done yet. I got 3 questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah. You bet.
All right. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Keep your hand closed longer.
Oh, that's priceless. That I have never heard that before in over 200 episodes. That's priceless. All right, I love it. All right, so the second one is like everybody's going through challenges in their life, one way or another. If you could give them 2 habits to incorporate into their daily life to continue to move forward, to continue to close their hand, what would those 2 things be?
The sun will come up tomorrow. There is always going to be rough times.
Yeah.
But tuck your chin and press on, because the sun will shine the next day and it will get better. It may not seem it will.
Yeah.
But it will. Have faith.
I love that. All right, this last one's gonna be fun because I literally have no idea who you're gonna pick. So if you could have coffee at a firehouse table, so in other words, any question is gonna be answered at the table with 3 people. They can be deceased or alive. Who would those 3 people be?
George Washington, Teddy Roosevelt, and the other toss-up. I'm a big forefathers. My dad.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, my dad, because I miss him.
That's awesome. Hey, Michael, you're a great man. I appreciate everything that you're doing, and I appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, roger that. Thanks for having me, Robert.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. And please share this episode with a friend or family member. To find out more about Fireman Rob, or if you have a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.